Alright, folks, back to chapter 15 Planting a Seed of Prosperity. Yes! And this is the second half of that chapter. And I'm going to finish this chapter with this video. And we just ended at a cliffhanger last time with Fierce Gage. Trying to explain more of what he's doing. So Apasius had asked, um, let's see, bro. Yeah, asked him about what kind of fun Furious Gage means by saying, "Oh, there's a lot of fun here in this city." Or in this forum. Alright, so let's begin. Oh, before that, the disclaimer. Yep. I sometimes forget to post this disclaimer, but this time I remembered, so 3 seconds wait, and then boom. Oh, man. Yeah, I forget to breathe sometimes while reading these stuff, so. So Furious Gage says, "Oh, that You see, this forum itself is a theater of its own. I was able to witness various tortures, public executions, and imprisonments. Not as frequently these days, but in past years that was quite so. It's especially prevalent in the form of the ox. Oh, you can't imagine what goes in there when things get serious. Oh yeah, but let me have it. Oh man, yeah, that was. I guess I had lagged off. Yeah. Oh yeah, but let me have some of that water." Gage said and pointed at Apasius' water skin. Apasius couldn't believe how comfortable Gage was while conversing with him. Therefore, without thinking, he passed the water skin to Gage. Upon receiving, Gage drank many gulps of water before getting ready to speak again. "Ah, that was great! I don't remember when the last time was I drank water. Anyways, where was I? Oh yeah, about having fun. So you see, there are quite many abandoned buildings out there on the ways to Theodosian walls. We homeless people take advantage of those places and sleep there during nights, just about anywhere, and we gather together to talk, or anything else to kill time. I've seen quite a lot of women there as well, and one night, when I was sleeping, I felt someone down at my legs. It was a girl around my age, and she was trying to get to know me. You know what I'm saying?" Gage paused for Apasius to keep in track of his story. "Yeah, of course I do," Apasius said. "Good, you're a bright young man." Then I get so shocked and immediately shoved her away, got myself together, and rushed out of the building. Gosh, I'm not trying to start up a family. How dare she? Trying to pull a fast one on me like that. So she followed me, but I dodged her and lost her out in the dark of the night, and cleaned myself up at Lycus River. That was quite a heck of a night, but I enjoyed the pleasure and thrill of it. It was actually quite fun. Other times, other women would try to get close to me in hopes that I'd take them on as their man, but I would reject, since I loved this free life that I had. There's not a place in here that I wasn't able to visit, or at least take a look around. One time, I walked all the way over to Selengria, where my cousin lived, because nobody took any sympathy on me nor given me any alms for a long while, and I thought I was going to die from hunger. And I knew he was going to give me food and shelter for a while because he's rich. Gage was lost in thought for some moment. "What does your cousin do for a living?" Apostle said. "Oh, thanks for giving me notice. Since I was going to talk about that, he grows grapes and has a winery with some workers where they make wine and put it in barrels. Many of them come to Constantinopolis. They're really great. He's already many years in business," Gage said. "How old is your cousin?" Apostle said. "Oh, he's much older than me. I think 40? Could be younger than that. I'm not too sure." Gage coughed a couple times. Pausius cleared his throat. "If I may ask, what did he do for a living before setting up a winery? He seems like a prosperous man. I respect that. And I just want to know how he went about being prosperous like that." "If I recall correctly, he was a miner in Siderocalcia ever since he was a young man like you. He. Gage couldn't go far. "What's Siderocalcia?" "It's a mining town near Thessalonica. Uh, Anyways, he worked diligently for many years, and he moved up the ranks to become one of the supervisors. He then worked in various other jobs in the mining town to rack up so much money. One day, due to the uncertainties of the safety in the mining town, since Turks were always raiding, he was pressured to come to Constantinopolis. However, he didn't like the atmosphere here, so he left after 2 years, and boom, he came across Selembria and settled there as a winemaker. Gage said. Pasios had a great time talking to Gage because he was so different from other homeless people whom he had encountered before. He couldn't feel that time was passing by fast, and Thomas and others would surely be waiting for him back in the street. Talking to Gage was just so fun, and he later got to know that Gage is the same person who has families and relatives who care for him greatly. They talked for much longer than what Apossius thought they would, and finally came to finishing up their conversation. Gage, thank you very much for telling me your story. I appreciate that very much. Things like that give me indirect experiences in my life I, that I need from time to time, Apossius said. No problem. Good to be of help to you, Gage said. Apossius couldn't just walk away as if nothing had happened between them. He fiddled his pockets, but of course there was no money, so he decided to give whatever food he had. Here, have these dried fishes and some bread. Apossius handed over the food. Oh, why thanks. I just needed that. Gage gladly took the food and started eating immediately. Therefore, Apossius bade him farewell, and headed for the street that he came from. However, something was just not right in his mind. He suddenly started feeling so uncomfortable as if he had to go to the lavatory. Then he started thinking about why he came to this forum in the first place. Suddenly, he bumped into an old man who was talking to someone. Hey, young man, watch where you're going. Old man was furious. Oh, I'm sorry, sir. I was just lost, Apostle said. I'll let you pass this time. But man, good luck with getting out of unemployment. The old man sighed and resumed his conversation with the person. Apostius was confused because he didn't know what that someone would see him as an unemployed person. He then looked at his surroundings and noticed that there were lots of men around his age hustling around or sitting around homeless or hopeless. Furthermore, Apostios had nothing on him which would make him look different from those men, so he immediately understood how he was called and attempted to move on his way. However, he couldn't move on, because something clicked in his mind when that old man had said about unemployment. That's when it hit him that he came here because he was on a mission to find an expert miner for Thomas. Then he recalled that Gage had a cousin who previously worked in the mining town near Thessalonica. He then grunted loudly and ran back to where Gage was, or where he thought Gage was. Out of the corner of his eyes, he saw Gage leaving to head into another street, towards where Hagia Sophia stood very far away. Therefore, Pausius ran to where Gage was and tapped on his shoulder. Gage, would you mind if you come with me? It's a long story, but I guarantee you that it'll be worth it, Pausius said. Gage looked at Apostius for a while as if weighing his options to see which would be better. Well, you got me here. No, you got me there with the fishes and bread. Man, they were really tasty, and I'm all in with you, he said with a smile. Apostius thanked him and quickly came back with him to where he left off Thomas. When he arrived, he noticed that Thomas and Ephraim were sleeping while Placidus and Seth were talking amongst each other with a cart on their backs, probably going over engineering documents that Placidus had with him. I am here, Apostius shouted at them. Startled, Placidus and Seth immediately stopped whatever they were doing and peeked from their cart. They soon woke up Thomas and Ephraim, and by the time when sauntering Gage stopped next to Apostius, everyone was awake to realize what was going on. Who's he? Thomas pointed at Gage. His name is Gage. I thought you might like the information he has, Apostius said. What? Is he a miner? Surely doesn't look like it, Thomas said in disbelief. He isn't, but he knows someone who is, Apostius said. Thomas wanted to tell Gage to just go away, but when he saw the determination in Apostios' eyes, he just couldn't do it. Okay then, let's hear him out, Thomas said. Gage then went about telling Thomas everything that he had just told Apostios a while back regarding his cousin's occupation as a miner. He went on further to tell Thomas that his cousin knew how to operate kilns, work on smelting silver and gold, and many other things which quickly caught Thomas' attention. When Gage was finished, Thomas started talking with Ephraim whether to give it a chance or not. When the short conversation was over, Thomas looked back at Gage to speak. Can you find him right now if you were to go there? Yeah, of course. I went there a month ago to get some food, Gage said. Ha ha ha. I really like how you're so laid back all the time. Then let's go. After saying that, Thomas immediately stood up to leave. Where? Placido said. What do you mean, where? To Salimbria, though, Thomas said. Seth flinched upon hearing what Thomas said. It'll take so long to get there. We'll be there when it's quite dark. It's just after lunchtime when the sun is right above us, so it won't be that dark if we hurry. Thomas turned to face him. But we need to get back to our fortress by sunset, Seth said. Thomas simply looked at Seth for a while. When Seth was becoming uncomfortable by his incessant stare, he cleared his throat. Are you with me in this or not? Thomas said. Seth seemed very bewildered. I don't know what you're talking about. Thomas moved closer to Seth. Don't be so naive, Seth. You were with me and working towards our minds when you and Placidus raised your hands. What was that I heard when you guys were talking about engineering during my sleep? What was that? Did I hear something different? That was about future plans regarding the watchtowers in our fortress. He said they need to be repaired, Seth said. Thomas chuckled. I did hear something different then, but that doesn't matter, because I'm going to get a mining complex in Halki Island. I rejected all the suggestions of Claus about getting stone mines, so I can't back down now. I must work on it till it's done. Now, do you understand me? Yes, Seth said. Thomas was getting very serious, and Seth was quick to realize such an intense atmosphere around Thomas' body. Thomas was usually an easygoing guy who often resorted to lax discipline on his members, but when someone dared to interfere in his areas of interest, he would turn rather sinister, which was quite the scary version of it. Having known him for around 3 years, Seth was already an expert in realizing when to remain tough or given whenever it came to interacting with Thomas. I thought so. Now I remind you again. We're going to Salimbria to look for Gage's cousin. No, Furious Gage's cousin. And I hope and pray that he helps us out setting them up. Don't worry about Commander Kairos. We will get the permit for as long as we are working on finding ways to start the mining complex. Thomas spoke confidently. Seth nodded slowly, and he motioned for Placidus to move. Placidus, on realizing that things got heated up, instantly obeyed Seth's directions without any question. So Thomas muttered at Apossius and Gage to follow and lead the way as he pushed the cart. Ship rides started out awkward because nobody talked, and everyone was very uncomfortable. Apossius knew that he had to think of something to break the silence since no one was in any position to do it at the moment. Seth and Placidus had just been shamefully fired down by Thomas due to their lack of understanding. Ephraim was quite shocked himself to do anything meaningful. And Gage had that look of a person who didn't care because it was none of his business. Hey Thomas, back when you were addressing Gage, when did you switch to calling him Furious Gage? Do you like that better? Apossius spoke as if he couldn't notice uncomfortable silence. Thomas chuckled for a while, perhaps thanking for rescuing them out of the situation. Yeah, I like that name. Suits him well, because he's not afraid of doing anything. Even though being furious doesn't really relate to that, I consider the title as something which makes him beyond an ordinary person. Thomas said, I know, right? Let's just call him Furious Gage from now on. Are you fine with this, Gage? Ephraim quickly joined in the conversation. Yeah, whatever. That's what people call me more so these days, so I'm better used to that. Furious Gage then. Furious Gage, I'm curious. Do you think your cousin would be willing to leave his place to help us out in setting up a mining complex? Thomas said. I don't know. That's up to him to decide. To be honest, he could be willing, since he needs to move when he gets fed up with doing something. Furious Gage said, I am very hopeful right now. I am seriously hoping this turns out really great for us, Thomas said. This journey lasted rather long, for it was after sunset and getting darker by the moment when they barely made it into Salimbria's harbor. During their journey, Thomas was able to better his relation with Placidus and Thomas by initiating conversation, and the whole group felt so much better when they got into an inn to eat dinner and sleep. They sat in groups of three, and Pasio sat with Seth and Placidus because he didn't talk with them much on the ship. When Apicius looked at Placidus, the incident from the wagons came back to him, and in his head he could hear Ephraim shouting Placidus' name too. "Hey, Placidus, you were there at the wagons on that day, right?" Apicius said. Placidus flinched back because of the surprise question. "Well, yeah," Placidus said. Seth slowly nodded his head in realization about where the conversation was headed. "Placidus, why were you so blooded up at that time?" Seth said. "Don't worry, I was there, and I told Seth about the incident too, so there's no point in hiding it," Apicius said. Placidus pointed at Apicius. "Wait, so you were that fresh recruit who came with the medicine bag?" "Well, duh. Who did you think I was?" Apicius said. "I thought he was someone else. Nice armor you had, though. But man, thanks. The engineer and those melee guys are alive now thanks to you. And the reason why I was so blooded up was because that wasn't my blood. It was the enemy militia's blood that splattered on me when I slashed his neck. It was like a fountain, but an irregular one which spews out different amounts of blood because of the pumping of the heart. After that, he collapsed on me trying to stab me at my chest, but my armor protected me. And I stabbed his stomach with my short sword," Placidus said. Suddenly, Seth slammed on the table with his hands. "Wow! A kill for an engineer! Hey, Placidus, you should be proud of yourself." Seth tapped on Placidus' back. Placidus smiled. "That wasn't a good kill, though. That Turk didn't even have a shield with him, so it wasn't a fair match." Seth looked at Placidus. "Wait, you didn't have any shield either? Is that true?" "Well, that is true," Placidus said. "So that was a fair match. Maybe that's why that Turk lunged at you, thinking you would be an easier target," Seth said. Placidus chuckled for a while. "Engineers don't have shields?" Apasio said. Seth shook his head. "They don't, because it is expected that they carry with them various tools and manage the heavy artillery and engines, thus leaving little to no space for carrying around shields with them. That's why the melee infantry were going out of their way to protect the engineers." Placidus trembled a bit and looked at Apicius. "If it wasn't for you and Ephraim who came at that moment, I think all of us would have been dead." "Hmm, why did the Turks retreat on that first fight, though?" Seth said. Placidus shrugged. "I don't know. Maybe they were trying to rally more of their comrades due to our strong defense. But due to the wounds, those four melee guys collapsed down immediately after the Turks' retreat. Then, that 10 Turks suddenly increased to 20 and 30 by the end. They ate food for a while." "It's still not clear to me. Hey Seth, why did Commander Kairos tell Thomas that he shouldn't bring everyone out of the fortress to go to Halki Island? Why did he say that when there are fortress keepers to do the job?" Pasio said. "He said that because he doesn't want many of us wasting our time on an unnecessary venture. We may think it's very necessary, but to him and the executives that it's not their priority," Seth said. "Also, when there are sick and injured people, they need to be left behind in the fortress, and the fortress keepers will be the ones who will take care of their needs." Placidus turned to look at Seth. "Hey Seth, do you know what our fortress really needs? We need to totally overhaul the system and make it better somehow. Before we increase our numbers, we need to start educating kids who live on the islands, not just making them work for meager pay and free food. Make our fortress more profitable by selling the resources, not rationing them to each group. After that, then we recruit from the people from the islands." "Yeah, I get what you're talking about. Also, there's continuous lack of control in the fortress. I bet that Lord Pericles is currently thinking about this while he's in Constantinople. We shouldn't have hogs and cows in the fortress either. They're too smelly. Maybe chickens can be in because they are small, but we need to rule out others except for horses. Also, there's increasing distance between the soldiers and civilians on the island. because we only recruit people from elsewhere. Lord Pericles owns the islands, so I wonder why he doesn't recruit anyone from there. He allows one thing and another thing, and there come in loads of undisciplined actions from the soldiers, Seth said. But where do we keep the hogs and cattle then? The whole island is full of trees, Apostle said. Then clear them out and set up more farmland. Then we can give hay to the cattle. Don't worry about hogs, they will eat anything. Also, just because it's full of trees, that doesn't mean that they don't graze there. There's also much grass to be eaten beneath those trees. Then we need longer roads to exercise our horses. I am so frustrated because the island isn't improving fast enough. Seth slammed his hand on the table again. Placido suddenly tapped on Seth's shoulder with a smile. Seth, if you're feeling like that, imagine how Lord Pericles would be feeling. He's the Lord there. But if an ordinary soldier like you are feeling frustrated, he will be spinning around in frustration even in his sleep. I saw him lost in thought much more often these days. Now I can see why. Yeah, probably. I just want to see the change as soon as possible, says Sin. Don't worry, we'll get there. And when we get there, you'll wonder why you even worried so much right now, Placido said. When they finished eating, they went to the rooms to sleep. After that, they woke up early in the morning to get a quick breakfast and go look for Furious Gage's cousin. So, that's his house? Thomas looked at Furious Gage. That's right. Now let me do the talk, Furious Gage said. Then Furious Gage knocked on the door a couple times. Hold on, I'm coming, came out a voice, and a man opened the door. Hey Tassos, how's it going? Furious Gage said. Tassos was very surprised to see Furious Gage in front of him. Hi, Gage. I'm doing fine, but who are they? He was pointing at men behind Furious Gage. Oh, they're my guests. I met them in Constantinopolis, and they want to seek favor from you. Furious Gage said, you have never brought any guests before. This is strange. Tassos stopped for a while and looked at Thomas and his soldiers. Anyways, I was going to look over the fields today, but I can spare some time. Tassos turned to look at Thomas and others. Hello, welcome in. Furious Gage motioned for Thomas and his men to follow them. Inside, Tassos told them to sit around at a big table. Thomas approached Tassos. Sir, we sincerely thank you very much for having us. I hope we're not intruding. Ah, that's fine. You don't need to be so formal. I'm happy to have you all here. Tassos went away to get something. Sometime later, he came back with plates full of various nuts and dried grapes. Here, feel free to eat them. Tassos laid down the plates and sat down in an empty seat. So, what made you come here? He said when everyone seemed comfortable enough. Thomas briefly explained why they came here. During that time, everyone had introduced themselves to Tassos and they all got to know each other. Again, we need someone who can help us start the mining and smelting complex on Helki Island. Furious Gage here told us that you're an expert in both areas, that you previously have worked in Siderocalcium, and that's why we rushed here to seek help. We have enough money. It's just that we need someone who can get it started. So please help us. Tassos became deep in thought as he was listening to Thomas' story. 5 young soldiers trying to do a risky venture for obtaining more wealth. This was quite rare of an encounter for him. He looked at each one of them carefully, as if trying to find out what he may be thinking. Nobody spoke for a long while until Furious Gage cleared his mouth to speak. Well, Tassos, they're good guys. One of them came to me to talk and share food when everybody else laughed at me. And later, they all treated me like brothers. I'm pretty sure that you have time to do something different for a while. Tassos nodded his head at Furious Gage and turned back to Thomas to say something. It's off topic, but why do you call my cousin Furious Gage? That's what the civilians in Constantinopolis call him. Thomas quickly noticed Tassos' grimace. Oh no, we are not demeaning him in any way. That's the title that we took over because we think that he's someone greater than other ordinary civilians. He glanced at Furious Gage for a moment. He is so laid back and adventurous, and we could sense that he has a great character inside of him. And that makes him a true soldier who fights his way through the hardships of this world. Furious Gage smiled in agreement and muttered his thanks to Thomas, who complimented him. Tassos nodded again and became deep in thought for a while. How much are you willing to pay me? Tassos said. Thomas looked at Seth, Placidus, and Apostius for a while because he hadn't discussed it with them previously. But he couldn't discuss it at the moment, so he decided to push it with what he had. We'll pay you generous wages, greater than what any other smelter in Constantinopolis gets paid, for the time you work to help get things going. Also, when you leave and if we continue to have productions, then we will hand you 100th of our revenues. Thomas said, Well, you got me on that. Thomas drank some water. But tell me, a mining community that you're hoping to build requires lots of water. How are you going to acquire them on a small island? Thomas couldn't say much. Tassos realized that this group was very amateur, so he decided to not press them any further. I'll be willing to work with you, but first you must find out solutions for not just this, but any other further problems that you may have with your mine. Plan them out, get the place ready, and then I'll be willing to go there to get everything set up and ready to go. Understood? Tassos said. Yes, sir, Thomas said. It felt weird for Thomas to say yes, sir, in a submissive way. He never was the kind of person who was submissive. However, he didn't have any other choice, so he yielded to his instincts that he must appear as humble as possible in front of Tassos. It's okay, dude. Just relax. I'll be ready to help with making those kilns. And since your friend Placidus already knows how to engineer structures, you already have enough people around you to start this mine. Tassos chuckled. If you want, you're welcome to come by any time to request help. I have many documents and other resources from my job in Siderocalcia. Thomas immediately brightened up when he understood what Tassos said. Thank you so much, sir. I won't forget this mercy and kindness. Thomas paused to think. When will you be most able to help us? You should get the place ready for me by late fall to early winter. That's when all the grapes are harvested, and the winery is just sitting around waiting for the juice to be fermented. I'll be free to help you guys by then, and we'll need some months to instruct laborers and oversee them during their early stages. Tassos cleared his throat. Now let me ask a favor from you. What is it? Thomas said. I want you guys to start employing my cousin. Tassos gazed at Furious Gage for a moment. He is a great guy who has so much potential, but he hasn't been able to land on a quality life because he tasted an unusual kind of freedom. I want you to employ him as the overseer of the smelting areas when I'm done with getting things going there. Thomas opened his mouth to reply, but was quickly interrupted by Furious Gage. What? You want me to be stuck on that island? Heck no! Furious Gage was indeed furious this time. Tassos took a deep sigh, shook his head, and stared at Gage for a long time, which felt like forever to others. Gage, you know that you're better than this. Playing time is almost over, and you need to start acting like a man, dude. My kids have already grown up, and I don't want them to continuously see you as a homeless guy. Neither do you. And especially you. On the other hand, you have frequently told me that I live a boring life and that I need to change it up for a while. So I appreciate that that you have given me a chance to do it. I am stepping out of my comfort zone, so you need to do it too. Step it out, then you'll never regret it afterwards when you have money rolling and family living alongside you. Furious Gage became quiet because he had nothing to say. Something in his mind told him to just run out of the house and never come back. But that seemed like a childish thing to do, even for Furious Gage who spent most of his time outdoors. Therefore, he sighed and lowered his head down in shame. Tassos looked at others. Sorry about ruining the mood here. I just had to do that. Oh, you're good, Tassos. Do what you need to do, Thomas said. Silence fell back in the house, so Thomas attempted to break it. Hey, Furious Gage, we will surely be looking for anyone to manage our mines, and it'll be great if that person becomes you. And it'll be easier for Tassos to trust our integrity since he'll have his own cousin working there as a manager. No one else fits the profile better than you. So think about that before you decide, Thomas said. Tassos nodded at Thomas's thanks and looked at Furious Gage. Yeah, you'll do great in that. You're very capable. You already know how to read and write, so just some months of instructions will get you going without a shadow of a doubt. Furious Gage eventually agreed at the end, and everyone sighed in relief. After that, everyone started getting up to leave, and Tassos turned to Thomas. So, I guess we are done here for now. Visit me anytime when you need something. Just ask around other civilians in case you forget how to come here. Don't worry about Gage. He will live here for a while. Tassos looked around in his house and walked out with them outside, up to the door. Well, I'll see you guys later. Thank you, Tassos. Out of the bottom of our hearts, we give you our full gratitude, Thomas said. Everyone spoke out their gratitude and they bade Tassos farewell before leaving. Nobody spoke for a while as they walked until Thomas turned around to look at them. Therefore, everyone stopped to see what he would do. Apacios, I am proud of you. Thanks, man, Thomas said, and he placed his hand on Apacios' shoulder. Apacios flinched in surprise. Oh, you're welcome, Thomas. He gave his response, but he didn't know what Thomas was talking about. He was thanking you for being the underpinning cause of all this, Seth said after walking for a while. Well, I didn't do anything. I just followed around Thomas and you guys, Apacios said. Sure you did. It's just that you tend to not notice your own achievements. Seth looked at Thomas. Thomas doesn't really compliment someone, and much less thank them like that. Sincerely, I mean. So I guess he really wanted that mining complex. Apacios just looked at Seth as he walked. Then he simply shrugged his shoulders thinking it wasn't a big deal and moved on. When they arrived at their ship, they got prepared and sailed out to go back to their land. Alright, so that was it for chapter 15, and the next video I'll go over chapter 16, the stepping stone. Okay, so as with the Gage, him having a rich, what was it, the whiner? Yeah, so the same homeless guy that I was referring to in my life, he also had a rich cousin who whom he referred to as a weed doctor. He specifically mentioned a gold licensed weed doctor. I don't know what the heck that's about, like gold license, silver license, or even like I don't know. So, anyways, a gold license. So I pretty much thought he's a wealthy guy. So, and he also said that the cousin grows weeds. So I'm like, oh, weeds, drugs. Okay, that's wealth. That's being the rich person. So that's how uh I created this guy named Tassos as a whiner, the wealthy whiner. That's how I based Gage and Tassos, and then also like his family living like all over the country of Greece and Bulgaria, because Mesembria and Pyrgos, those were in Bulgaria. So also this homeless guy had families living all over United States. So that's where the whole idea came from. So anyways, like back then when I was talking to that homeless guy, I never knew I'll be utilizing that information on my book, but it just did. I mean, it's just natural flow, you know. Sometimes in life you just gotta go with the flow. So, anyways, I'm not gonna spend too much talking here. So I'll see you guys tomorrow, or I guess or something. All right, thank you for listening.